I would like to request Brother Mustafa Hassan for a Quran recitation. Please recite the salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا واصبر على ما يقولون واهجرهم هجرا جميلا وذرني والمكذبين أولي النعمة ومهلهم قليلا إن لدينا أنكالا وجحيما وطعاما ذا غصة وعذابا أليما يوم ترجف الأرض والجبال وكانت الجبال كثيبا مهيلا إنا أرسلنا إليكم رسولا شاهدا عليكم كما أرسلنا إلى فرعون رسولا فعصى فرعون الرسول فأخذناه أخذا وبيلا فكيف تتقون إن كفرتم يوما يجعل الولدان شيبا السماء منفطر به كان وعده مفعولا إن هذه تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه وطائفة من الذين معك والله يقدر الليل والنهار علم أن لن تحصوه فتاب عليكم فاقرؤوا ما تيسر من القرآن علم أن سيكون منكم مرضى وآخرون يضربون في الأرض يبتغون من فضل الله وآخرون يقاتلون في سبيل الله فاقرؤوا ما تيسر منه وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله هو خيرا وأعظم أجرا واستغفروا الله إن الله غفور رحيم صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على Muhammad. MashaAllah, there was Mustafa Hassan with a beautiful recitation of Quran. Now I would like to invite Brother Muhammad Zahid Hussain with a short information sharing session about Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. Please recite the salawat.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Congratulations on the anniversary birth of our Imam Muhammad Ali al-Baqir, and on the beginning of the special month of Rajab. Today, I will tell you some fascinating facts and narrations regarding Imam Baqir alayhi salam. The first of Rajab marks the anniversary of the auspicious birth of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, our fifth Imam. We commonly know him as the very young witness to the tragedy of Karbala, where it is narrated that he was only 4 or 5 years old. We can imagine that if some Imams became Imams at the age of 6, that Imam al-Baqir was certainly aware of his surroundings and what took place before him on that day. Despite witnessing such a horror at such a young age, he set the ground and basis for the university that Imam Jafar Sadiq established so that it could flourish after his death. It was said that after the death of the fourth Imam in the 95th year after Hijri, the caliphs in Damascus were so preoccupied with the conquest of foreign lands that they did not have time to worry about the people in Medina and their loyalties and their hostilities. They were also satisfied that the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt would not organize any rebellions against them due to the peaceful life of the fourth Imam, Imam Zain al-Abidin. This left the people of Medina in some peace. This perfect time was the perfect time for the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt because that they were waiting for. Our fifth Imam opened a school to teach Quran and Hadith like it was taught by the Holy Prophet and Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir was said to have been highly esteemed for his learning and eloquence, as well as his noble birth. The Imam received the title of al-Baqir, meaning the splitter of knowledge, due to his ample knowledge of the deen and his enthusiasm to teach other people. Imam al-Baqir was a very kind man who would not only emphasize the importance of gaining knowledge, but also the kindness, along with other ethical practices, because at his time, ethics, philosophy, sciences, jurisprudence, and more were being developed further in the Islamic world. A quote by Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam is as follows: "As for kindness to people, it plays an important role in strengthening social ties and spreading love and friendship among people." Some wonderful sayings of Imam al-Baqir include, "If you deal with anyone and do them a favor, do that." Number 2, he who disobeys Allah does not recognize him. Number 3, the believer is the brother of the believer, so he should not abuse him, nor should he deprive him of his rights, nor should he doubt him. And finally, modesty and faith are coupled with each other. If one of them goes away, the other will follow it. Inshallah, we all strive to learn more about our knowledgeable Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. Congratulations again to everyone on the birth of Imam Baqir. Salawat.
MashaAllah, very insightful. Just a question for the children. What does al-Baqir mean? Who knows the meaning? Sunday school. All right, so he said, the splitter of the knowledge. Please recite salawat for Zahid Hussain. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now let me invite Brother Muhammad Ibrahim for poetry with your louder salawat.
Salawat. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. After the Prophet, I love Ali. He is the first. Why don't they see? At al-Ghadir, called by Nabi, when he proclaimed after me Ali. Ali directed me to Hassan, Sitting or standing, follow my son. A victor by peace, he is the one. So my second Imam is Hassan. After Hassan, his brother Hussein. He went through much suffering and pain, and right before him dear ones were slain. The third Imam's children are in chains. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. My fourth Imam is also Ali. His du'as take our worries, and his ibadah of such degree that he was called Zainul Abidin. Muhammad Baqir came after him, a teacher of Deen and Dunya's ilm. Sciences that we know of today, based in foundations that he had laid. Imam as-Sadiq was next in turn. The doors were opened for all to learn. Malik Hanifa studying from he. Who is my master? I'm Ja'fari. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. As a Shia, I need to become in the footsteps of the 7th Imam. He was called Musa al-Kadhim. With anger nobody had seen him. I love the Sultan of Khurasan, who is the 8th leader from the clan. Ali ibn Musa Rida, who was always content with Allah. The 9th Imam that we now call, goodness and bounty he gave to all. Taqi al-Jawad, the generous soul, at a young age returned to his Lord. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. The 10th Imam is Ali Naqi, a guiding light for all to see, against the challenges on the deen. As a defender was always seen, Imam Hassan al-Askari lived life in captivity, had the oppressors in such worry. In fear of the awaited Mahdi, Muhammad al-Mahdi the 12th We wait for him and pray for his health, hoping for the day to hear his call, as he brings back justice for all. These are the 12 of whom I adore. After the Prophet, they are my core. Blessings of Allah be on them all, and may He raise with them our souls. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. I'm from the Shia, Ithna Sharia. That means I follow the 12 Imams. Salawat.
Muhammad. MashaAllah, that was Brother Muhammad Ibrahim. Before I invite Sayyid, a few announcements about some upcoming programs. MashaAllah, Rajab is filled with a lot of programs, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but just a few of them that are next week. Saturday, January 4th at 7 p.m. There will be Majlis for martyrdom of Imam Ali al-Naqi al-Hadi alayhi salam. The Majlis will be in English. Saturday, January 11th, there is an Urdu program, birthday of Imam Taqi al-Jawad और Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam की birthday के बारे में program होगा, जश्न होगा, और इसे गेस्ट स्पीकर अली सफदर जो पाकिस्तान से आएंगे वो भी यहाँ पे होंगे। अब सबसे गुजारिश है कि इसमें तशरीफ़ लाए। सैटरडे जनवरी 11th at 6:30 p.m. Monday, January 13 at 7 p.m. birthday celebration of Imam Taqi al-Jawad and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in English. Inshallah, we will announce further programs in the near future. I request everyone to take a note and come to these programs. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Now I would like to invite Hujjatul Islam al-Muslimin, Sayyid Sulayman Hassan, for the speech tonight. Please recite a louder salawat.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين، شفيع المذنبين وحبيب قلوب الصادقين، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الهداة المهديين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear mu'mineen and mu'minat, I begin by offering my prayers and congratulations to all of you on the beginning of the month of Rajab. Rajab is the 7th month of the Islamic calendar, and it is a very special month because even in the time of Jahiliyyah before Islam, the Arabs used to prohibit warfare in the month of Rajab. And it was a month that was often dedicated to the pilgrimage to Mecca known as the Umrah. And in Islam, it is also one of the 4 months in which warfare is prohibited. 3 of those months are associated with the main pilgrimage of Hajj, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, and Muharram. And one of them is this month of Rajab, which is associated even in Islam with a very special and highly recommended Umrah. Some of you may have had the tawfiq and the honor of performing Umrah in the month of Rajab, al-Umrah al-Rajabiyya. Others of you may have that intention, inshallah. May Allah grant all of us tawfiq. So it is a special month, not only because warfare is prohibited, and not only because it is highly recommended to do Umrah during this month, but also, and maybe more universally, because Rajab is the beginning of the season of Islamic spirituality. These 3 months, Rajab, Sha'ban, and Ramadan, these 3 months, they are a time for us to build our spiritual capacity in order to derive maximum benefit, first and foremost, from the opportunity that is presented in the month of Ramadan when we are fasting, when we are engaged in recitation of Quran and ibadah, to fill our soul and our heart with the love and the devotion of Allah. So if you think of the month of Ramadan like a time when you are putting into practice what you have learned, what you believe. You are living your values. In the month of Rajab and the month of Sha'ban, they are like a rehearsal and a preparation for that. I don't want to call it a test, because the month of Ramadan is much greater than a test. It is an honor. It is an invitation. It is an opportunity given to us by Allah. So to compare it to a test, it seems to be beneath the dignity and the honor that is due to the month of Ramadan. But just to give that image in our mind, if that is when we have to practice and live our values, just like we would if we had a test or a tournament or some very important time for us to show our experience and our accomplishments, and this is the time for us to build our stamina and to ready ourselves. What is it recommended for us to do? Inshallah, we will talk about this in more detail during the Jum'ah khutbah tomorrow. But the month of Rajab is a time of istighfar. The month of Rajab is a time of recommended fasting, whether it be 1 day or a number of days, even a single day, is very highly recommended. And if we can do 3 days in this month or more than that, then it is even greater. And then it is to prepare our character for the values that we want to live in the month of Ramadan. If I have bad habits, then this is the time, not because it's New Year's and you want to make a New Year's resolution, but because it is Rajab and it is honorable in the eyes of Allah, it is recommended in the eyes of Allah. All of us are familiar with the many ahadith that tell us that in the month of Ramadan, you don't want to fast and all you get out of it is hunger and thirst. But your eyes and your ears and your tongue, your hands and your feet, they have not become pious in that month of Ramadan. Well, I cannot expect that if I have a habit of gossip, all of a sudden I will be able to turn it off in the month of Ramadan. If I have a habit of losing my temper with my friends and with my family, and being irritable and being difficult to speak to and to approach, that all of a sudden I'm going to change that character in the month of Ramadan. It's not going to happen like you turn on a switch and you say, now you are in the mode of spirituality and piety. So you have 60 days that Allah has given you to prepare and to practice that character, so that when the month of Ramadan comes, then istighfar comes easily to my lips, but also to my heart. That fasting is not something that is immediately going to cause caffeine withdrawal and sugar withdrawal, but I've practiced it in the month of Rajab, I've practiced it in the month of Sha'ban, maybe not every day, but my body and my mind has become accustomed to fasting, reciting the Quran, so bringing that fluency back to our tongues and back to our heart. All of this is part of the preparation in the month of Ramadan, the month of Rajab and Sha'ban for the month of Ramadan. And then there are a number of very special occasions in the month of Rajab. And these occasions are also part of our preparation, and in fact, in some ways, they are the best part of our preparation. When there is an occasion in honor of Ahlul Bayt, then we shouldn't consider that day to be, pardon me, a normal day in our life. A day of birth of one of the ma'asumeen, a day of the martyrdom of one of the ma'asumeen. That shouldn't be the same as any other day. I go to work, I go to school, I live my life, and it's as if this is just like any other day. What makes it special? One of the best ways that we can make it special is to devote a portion of that day to thinking about and expressing our obedience and our love for that personality with which that day is associated. And in this month of Rajab, we have a number of important occasions. Inshallah, on the 13th of Rajab, all of us will come together to remember the birth of the brother and successor of our Prophet and the Imam and the leader of the believers, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. And then we have other occasions associated with Ahlul Bayt and associated with the mission of our Prophet in this month of Rajab. And one of those occasions is on this day, the very first of the month of Rajab, and that is the birth of our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir, the great-grandson of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now, there is also a narration that the second of Rajab, which is the eve of tomorrow. So this night is the eve of the second of Rajab, and tomorrow will be the day of the second of Rajab. According to one narration, that is the day of the birth of our 10th Imam, Imam Ali ibn Muhammad al-Hadi al-Naqi alayhim as-salam. So this is also one narration for us to be aware of, but the more common narration is that the birth of our 10th Imam is in the month of Dhul Hijjah, on the 15th of Dhul Hijjah. But because one narration says that it was on the 2nd of Rajab, we can also add that occasion and say that there are two occasions that we are remembering and we are celebrating today. One is the birth of our 5th Imam, and one is the birth of our 10th Imam. Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir, just a brief reminder of his life and some facts about his biography, and then inshallah we will proceed. He was the son of Imam Ali Zainul Abidin, who was in turn the son of our Prophet's grandson, Imam Hussein ibn Ali. But this is from his father's side. He was also a grandson of Imam Hassan, through Imam Hassan's daughter Fatima bint al-Hassan. So Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, he married the daughter of Imam Hassan. He was the son of Imam Hussein, and he married the daughter of Imam Hassan. And so it was considered to be a unique honor of Imam Zainul Abidin that he was a descendant of the Prophet, a descendant of Imam Ali, a descendant of Sayyidah Fatima from both his father's side and from his mother's side. And so he is sometimes called both Husseini and Hassani. Husseini in terms of his descent from his father, and Hassani in terms of his descent from his mother. Fatima bint al-Hassan, she was considered to be not only named after Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, but the most similar in appearance and in character of the women of Ahlul Bayt to Sayyidah Fatima salamullahi alayha. And she was among those noble ladies who was present in Karbala and witnessed all of the tragedies and suffered all of the hardships of the calamity of Karbala and suffered captivity, and then became one of the narrators and the people who established the tradition of commemorating and of remembering the martyrdom and the tragedy of Karbala. This was the mother of Imam Baqir alayhi salam. And he also was present in Karbala. And this is where I would like to begin our look at the life of our fifth Imam. That where did his life begin? With what tragedy and what calamities did Imam Baqir alayhi salam open his eyes to this world? And what did he give the Ummah, and in particular the Shia, just after a short life that was only 57 years from beginning to end? Imam Baqir alayhi salam, he didn't have a very long life, but it was a very blessed life and a very important milestone in the development of the school of Ahlul Bayt, in theology and in law, in belief and in doctrine and in practice. These days, many of us, we experience this feeling of worry, or maybe a little bit of despair or loss of hope, that the world is filled with so much evil and injustice. It might seem like there is no way to constructively engage with this world and be able to accomplish anything good. You see, the genocide in Gaza is continuing, and now even many of the Muslims who had been at the very least remembering and praying, their attention has turned away from those events. It seems as if we have an attention span, and then when something else comes on the news, it distracts us, and now it is not the first and the most important issue for Muslims. The tragedy has not come to an end. It's just that our attention has reached its limit. And by our, I mean not just humanity as a whole, but in particular Muslims, because we have a greater responsibility to keep alive the message and to turn the attention of all of humanity to the great crimes that are being committed against, yes, Muslims, but also Christians, and in the end, human beings in Palestine and in particular in Gaza, but also in many other places that can cause loss of hope and despair, because it seems like there is nobody to stop that crime. And sometimes people say, is there even a point in keeping up with the news? Is there even a point in going to a rally or a protest or trying to raise awareness when we know that it's not going to make a difference? The situation is not going to change. Those who stood up and supported the oppressed, even they are being condemned and they are being doubted, let alone we who are far away and have very limited things that we are able to do in practical terms. Those who gave their homes and their money and most importantly their lives and their most precious blessings from Allah, even their sacrifice and their service is not recognized by the Ummah. So this causes a great deal of worry and maybe pessimism and maybe despair for many Muslims. Then everybody is looking, just in a few weeks, we're going to have the inauguration of a new administration. And many people are worried, what's going to happen in foreign policy and in domestic policy. And so we're a little worried. Should I continue my charitable giving? Should I make any changes in my life? Do I need to be concerned about my job, about the economy, about my political and my social security? So these worries, they are present. And in many cases, the natural response of people is to kind of get discouraged. All right, if the struggle is that difficult, if the path is that distant, if the enemy is that powerful, what is the point of even beginning? Sometimes in education, you talk to people about what career they would like, and there are some careers that require a great deal of study. Maybe you have to get an undergraduate degree, then you have to get a graduate degree, or you have to go to a professional school, and then you may have an internship or an apprenticeship or a residency, and it's a long process before you reach the end of that road of education. And so some people, they say that that's too long. I don't want to be a student for the next 10 years of my life now that I've graduated from high school. I want to just have a shorter path. When the goal seems so distant, then sometimes it's easy for us to say that it might be important, it might be valuable, it might be a very beautiful goal, but I'm not going to subject myself to that hardship. Because we don't see the possibility, or we don't really believe in the worth, we don't see ourselves as getting to that destination. And so if you have ever felt that experience of pessimism and hopelessness because of the state of the Muslim community and how easy Muslims can get distracted by somebody saying takbir, Allahu Akbar, and forget their priorities and forget their alliances and their struggle. Or if you are worried and discouraged about the social or the economic or the political situation, if you are thinking of withdrawing from society because nothing can be fixed or nothing can be repaired, then the life and the sacrifice and the accomplishments of our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam, is one of the I believe, one of the best lessons for us to bear in mind. Our Imam says, قتل جد الحسين ولي 4 سنين وإني لأذكر مقتله وما نالنا في ذلك الوقت. This is a hadith narrated from our fifth Imam, that my grandfather Hussein ibn Ali was martyred when I was 4 years old. And don't think that because he was 4 years old that he didn't remember. You know, sometimes we think that children, they are not really observing and seeing. This was not just an ordinary child. This was a ma'soom. This was a child of the household of our Prophet and Ali and Fatima alayhimus salam. He says that وَإِنِّي لَأَذْكُرُ مَقْتَلَهُ. I remember the date, the time, the place, and the circumstances of the martyrdom of my grandfather. Our fifth Imam was not just a child present in Karbala, but he was an eyewitness to all of the tragedies that took place on the day of Ashura. Imagine what kind of an experience and an impression that would leave on the heart of our Imam at the age of 4. For him to be an eyewitness. Now, when there are 72 martyrs, and one of them is Imam Hussein, then of course we mention Imam Hussein first and foremost. But Imam Baqir witnessed the suffering of his father, Imam Zainul Abidin. And after Karbala, he witnessed the captivity and the hardship and the difficulty in transport and in captivity and in the court of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad and Yazid that Imam Zainul Abidin suffered, that his aunt Zainab bint Ali suffered. And he witnessed all of the other sacrifices and martyrs in Karbala. This was at the very beginning of the life of Imam Muhammad Baqir. But then, where did the imamat of our fifth Imam lead the Shia? There's a very beautiful narration from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. And I want to quote this riwayat in some detail. It is a sahih riwayat narrated by Sheikh Kulaini in Al-Kafi, and it's also found in a number of other sources, Tafsir al-Ayyashi and other sources. But it is an authentic narration, and there are a number of lessons that we can derive from it. One of the lessons is to see what the imamat of our fifth Imam accomplished. From that beginning in the depth of tragedy that befell Ahlul Bayt and the Ummah, in fact, that befell all of humanity. Where did our fifth Imam leave the Shia? And that gives us not just hope, but it also gives us guidance in what our priorities should be. It is said that a narrator by the name of Isa ibn Sari came to our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq, and said to the Imam that, can you teach me Da'a'imul Islam? What are the pillars of faith that I need to know in order to be a true Muslim? Now, sometimes we have this tendency that we like to get information in order to have an excuse not to do anything. I'm guilty of this. and I'm sure at least some of you may be able to relate to this experience, that it is the time for me to act, and I just say to myself, I don't have enough information. Let me watch one more video, let me read one more article, let me collect some more information so that I'll be able to do it better. In reality, it's not that I need more information. The experience that I will gain through trial and error is going to be more valuable to me than the additional information or data that I want to collect. In fact, sometimes the fadila time for prayer is about to pass, or the time for that action, the ideal and the optimal time, is going to pass. But still, I am just collecting more information. So this was a very wise companion of our Imam. He says, أخبرني بدعائم الإسلام التي لا يسع أحدا التقصير عن معرفة شيء منها. What are the pillars of faith that I need to know so that I will be firm on my faith, that nobody should be unaware of? For you as well, and for all of us, sometimes when we want to become more religious, we say that I'm going to take a course, I'm going to read a book, I'm going to gain knowledge, and then we are just storing facts in our mind somewhere that we're soon going to forget. And we're going to mix up the dates, the places, the facts. They're not going to stay in our mind, and even if they stay in our mind, they may not be useful for us unless we are able to put them into practice. So sometimes people ask this question, what was the rank of the Imams? Are they all at the same rank, or are some Imams better than others? Or they'll ask the question, are our Imams better or the Prophets? And there are discussions and there are debates. I will mention one hadith and you will mention one hadith, and I will mention one rational argument, and then you will say, but what about this? And we'll have so many discussions and debates about the life and the circumstances and the history and the relative virtues and ranks of the Imams, but we forget one thing, that what we owe Ahlul Bayt is our obedience. And if I am not obeying the commands, the teachings, and following the example of Ahlul Bayt, then even if I have perfect knowledge of the theology, then I cannot be a true follower of Ahlul Bayt. And if I obey Ahlul Bayt, and I say that, I don't know the conclusive answer to the question, what is the relative rank in the eyes of Allah of our 14 ma'asumeen? Allah knows best. If I say that I don't know whether our Imams are higher in rank or the Prophets are higher in rank, that is not my primary concern. It's not an invalid question, but it's not my primary concern. But I follow the Imams, then I am connected to them, and I will benefit in this life and in the hereafter. So this companion, he says to the Imam, tell me what is the priority. And then Imam Ja'far Sadiq, he responds, and he says that first, shahadatu an la ilaha illallah wal imanu bi anna Muhammadan Rasulullah وَالْإِقْرَارُ بِمَا جَاءَ بِهِ مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. First, testify that there is no God but Allah, and that Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi is the messenger of Allah, and to believe in all of those things that the Prophet brought from Allah. Imam didn't mention specifically prayer and Hajj and the prohibition of pork or the prohibition of wine or all of those details. He says that al-iqraru bima ja'a bihi min indillah. Believe in everything that the Prophet brought from Allah. But then he mentioned one teaching specifically. He didn't mention salat. Why? Not because salat is unimportant, but because when you believe in what our Prophet Muhammad brought, then of course you will believe in salat. But the Imam, he mentioned in particular the teaching of zakat. وَحَقٌّ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ الزَّكَاةِ. This is important because it's very easy for us sometimes to say that, oh, we need to pray, I'll do this prayer. It's wajib, I'll do it. It's recommended and it's reward, I will do it. But then if Allah says, give in the way of Allah, if my fellow believer comes to me and asks for assistance, I'll make 1,000 excuses on why I'm unable to contribute. There is a worthy Islamic project that needs my assistance. So I'll say that, well, I have other priorities and responsibilities and the economic situation is unclear and I don't know if I can do this, and so we'll make excuses for ourselves. If I say that there is a recommended prayer, I'll give the time, but I won't give my money, I won't give my wealth in the way of Allah. Maybe that's why the Imam singled it out for mention. And then the Imam mentions وَالْوَلَايَةُ الَّتِي أَمَرَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ بِهَا. The other thing that you need to know is the walaya, the guardianship and the connection to your divinely appointed leaders that Allah has commanded you to follow. This is the obedience to our Prophet first, and then to the Imams after. This companion Isa, he says that is there guidance in the Quran about this? And our sixth Imam, he says that Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u ar-rasul wa ulil amri minkum. When the Quran says that, O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the messenger and obey those vested in authority among you, then this is that clear message from the Quran that just as you owe obedience to Allah, you owe obedience to the messenger, and you owe obedience to people vested in authority. And this is not just a political obedience for us to say that it belongs to the general of a military campaign or that it belongs to a government, regardless of whether that government is just and guided by Allah or unjust or filled with many faults. This is religious guidance and teaching that is being referred to. So this is walaya. And then the Imam says that our Prophet has a hadith, and this hadith is narrated in both Sunni and Shi'i sources. There is a slight difference in the narration. And sometimes when we say that a hadith is narrated in both Sunni and Shi'i sources, we forget that the words are not always identical. And this can create sometimes a little bit of confusion. Sometimes Sunnis will come back and say that, well, why are you quoting me the version of the hadith that is found in your sources? This is not what is found in my sources. So the meaning of this hadith is found in both Sunni and Shi'i sources, but the wording is different. The way that it is quoted by Imam Ja'far Sadiq from Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih is man mata wa la ya'rif imam zamanihi mata mitatan jahiliya. A person who dies without knowing the imam of his time dies the death of jahiliyyah, the death of the age of ignorance. Not just an ignorant death, but the death of the age of ignorance when people didn't have a prophet, meaning they didn't have access to Islam and to the Sharia. If you don't know the imam of your time, you can't say, I have the Quran and I know how to pray and I know how to fast, so I have access to Islam. Without the imam, then you are in a life and you will die a death of the age of ignorance. We have a similar wording in the Sunni sources, just two versions from Sunni sources in Sahih Muslim. We have narrated from the Prophet, Man mata wa laysa fi unuqihi bay'a mata mitatan jahiliya. You can tell it is the same hadith, but perhaps political circumstances did not permit the narrators or the writers of the books to quote the full details. Imam was a sensitive term, and so perhaps the hadith was not quoted with full precision, but the basic gist of the hadith is very similar. Man mata wa laysa fi unuqihi bay'ah, a person who dies and there is no allegiance on their neck, meaning they are not pledged to obey a leader. It's not mentioned whether this is an imam or what the qualifications of that imam might be, but if there is no leader, then this is mitatan jahiliyyah. And there is a slightly more accurate version in Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And just as a side point, the world says that Bukhari and Muslim are the two most sahih books after the Quran. This is the belief of the generality of Muslims. But the reality is that sometimes there were certain hadith of the Prophet that went against the whims and the desires of the governments of the time. In those cases in particular, Bukhari and Muslim tend to give you a watered down version of the hadith. So don't be fooled and say that they are the most accurate. In many cases, even as a follower of Ahlul Bayt, I will agree that Bukhari and Muslim preserve a more accurate narration of the events of the time of the Prophet than many other sources. And we use those sources. But when there is a message or a hadith of the Prophet that goes against the desires of the government, that is when the more public your source is, the more likely that it is going to be censored. And you know this in your life. Maybe for many things you refer to the New York Times. You refer to the Washington Post. Generally, if you want to get, the stock quotes, if you want to get the general public news, those are some of your best sources. What happened in Congress today? What happened in public? But then if you discover some government conspiracy, do you think the Washington Post and the New York Times is going to cover it? They have too many considerations of political access and of owners and stockholders. They're not going to give you the real story in those areas that go directly against the wishes of the people in power. Doesn't mean they're unreliable, but in some areas they will be unreliable. So, Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal, this is a secondary source among Ahlul Sunnah, but it preserves a version of the hadith which is more authentic and more close to the correct version narrated by our sixth Imam. Man mata bighayri imamin mata mitatan jahiliyyah. This is not Imam Ja'far Sadiq and a Shi'i book. This is Ahmad ibn Hanbal narrating in his Musnad. It is a Sunni hadith, but you can see that it is almost identical with the version that is narrated by Imam Ja'far Sadiq from Rasulullah Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So the reason why I quoted this hadith is actually when the Imam mentions who were those leaders. He says that this ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum kana Rasulullah. First, of course, it was the Prophet himself. He was an Imam in the sense that as a messenger and as a Nabi, it was also his job not just to convey the law, but to implement it. So he was an Imam in addition to being a Nabi. Then after Rasulullah, وَكَانَ عَلِيًّا. Then it was Imam Ali. وَقَالَ الْآخَرُونَ كَانَ مُعَاوِيَةً. Now, question for all of us. Imam Ali was only opposed by Muawiyah? Muawiyah did oppose Imam Ali. But was there anybody before Muawiyah, or did Imam Ali, right after the death of the Prophet, have to contend with Muawiyah? Saqifa appointed Muawiyah? No. Look at the wisdom of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq when he is teaching his companions. He says that compare Imam Ali to the absurd belief of the others. You say Imam Ali is the divinely appointed ruler, others will say it is Muawiyah. If the Imam had quoted those who came before Muawiyah, in principle he would be justified. But so many people would say, no, but those were noble companions of the Prophet, they did so many good deeds. So see, sometimes we think of something because we have our own agenda. But the Imam, his agenda is only to spread the message of Islam and to guide people's heart towards the truth. And the way to do that is to say that if you don't believe in Ahlul Bayt, then by your logic, Muawiyah became the ruler of the Muslims. How can Muawiyah be qualified? I'll skip those who came before Muawiyah. Not because they are right. Why? Because Imam Ja'far Sadiq is making the clearest case that if you don't believe in Isma, and you don't believe Ati'u Allah wa Ati'u Rasul wa Ulil Amri Minkum is referring to Ahlul Bayt, then by your logic, eventually you will end up with Muawiyah, and he will be the Imam al-Muslimin. Can anybody with a conscience, can anybody with Iman, can anybody from any school of thought in Islam say that Ati'u Allah wa Ati'u Rasul wa Ulil Amri Minkum is referring to Muawiyah? Either you can believe in Rasulullah, or you can believe in those who undermined and fought and contradicted the character and the teachings of Rasulullah openly and publicly. Then Imam Ja'far Sadiq, he continues, ثُمَّ كَانَ الْحَسَنُ ثُمَّ كَانَ الْحُسَيْنُ وَقَالَ الْآخَرُونَ يَزِيدَ بْنَ مُعَاوِيَةَ. Notice this is the same language that is used in Ziyarat Ashura. That the only two who are named, Muawiyah and Yazid. Because this is where the absurdity of rejecting Ahlul Bayt becomes most clear and visible. It is not that Muawiyah was the first oppressor. It is not that Yazid was the first oppressor. But this is where the absurdity of rejecting Ahlul Bayt becomes most visible. O Shia, O followers of Ahlul Bayt, don't go against this wisdom and this teaching of Ahlul Bayt and focus on those areas which can lead to greater controversy and might cloud the picture. Yes, we have criticisms and we have the knowledge of where the deviations and the oppression of Muawiyah and Yazid started from. It didn't start from the opposition to Imam Ali during his caliphate. It started right after the death of the Prophet. But if you want to make that point clear to a Muslim, then say, let's take a look at the character of Muawiyah. Let's take a look at the character of Yazid. Is this acceptable? Is this justifiable? Okay, let us look at what are the foundations. Did Yazid come out of a vacuum? Or was he appointed by Muawiyah? Did Muawiyah come out of a vacuum? Or was there a logic and a process that brought him to power? And so you go in that way. This is the wisdom that Imam Ja'far Sadiq is conveying to his followers in order to help people come to the truth. Not just make a point and say, I did Itmam-e-Hujjat. I did my la'an and I made my point. No, the point is to bring people, to show them what they lose if they reject Ahlul Bayt. And then Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, he says, ثُمَّ كَانَ عَلِيَّ بْنَ الْحُسَيْنِ ثُمَّ كَانَ مُحَمَّدَ بْنَ عَلِي أَبَا جَعْفَرَ. He comes to his own father. And I will conclude in just a few minutes. This was the point of the hadith. It is a sahih hadith narrated in al-Kafi. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, he pauses when he talks about the role of his father, Imam Baqir. He says, كانت الشيعة قبل أن يكون أبو جعفر وهم لا يعرفون مناسك حجهم وحلالهم وحرامهم. The Shia before the time of Imam Muhammad Baqir, they did not know how to do Hajj properly. They did not know the full teachings of halal and haram. I've seen on some polemical sources, there are some enemies of Ahlul Bayt. They quote this hadith and they say, your Shia books, you say that they didn't recognize the Sharia and they didn't know the Sharia before the time of Imam Muhammad Baqir. So for 100 years, what were you doing? No, the meaning of this hadith is not that people did not know Hajj at all. It means that they did not have the proper understanding of the laws and of the priorities of Hajj. They prayed, but maybe there was some deficiency in their salat. They did wudu, but maybe there was some deficiency in their wudu. Before Imam Muhammad Baqir, not just the Shia, but all of the Muslims were deprived of many of the essential details of the teachings of Islam, in belief and in particular in fiqh. So Imam Baqir says, the Shia even, who were better than many of the other Muslims, but even the Shia, they did not know fully how to do Hajj, how to do their Islamic obligations. حَتَّى كَانَ أَبُو جَعْفَرَ, until Imam Baqir came. This is why he was named al-Baqir by the Prophet, that he split open those hidden gems of knowledge. فَفَتَحَ لَهُمْ وَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ. He opened for them and he guided them to know Hajj and halal and haram. حَتَّى صَارَ النَّاسُ يَحْتَاجُونَ إِلَيْهِمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا كَانُوا يَحْتَاجُونَ إِلَى النَّاسِ. Now people came and they were in need of the followers of Ahlul Bayt. After the followers of Ahlul Bayt, they used to sometimes go to scholars who were not students of the Imams because they didn't have access to the teachings of the Imams. Can you see what a massive change it was? Sahih al-Bukhari, which all of you have heard of, it has a little bit more than 7,000 hadith. Sahih Muslim, which all of you have heard of, it has just under 8,000 hadith. One narrator, Muhammad ibn Muslim al-Thaqafi, narrated 30,000 hadith from Imam Baqir alone. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He also narrated from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, and he narrated from our earlier Imams through his chains of transmission. The entirety of Bukhari is 7,000, a few hundred hadith. The entirety of Muslim is 8,000 hadith. The entirety of al-Kafi, Usul al-Kafi, Furu' al-Kafi, Rawdat al-Kafi is 16,000 hadith. But one narrator from one Imam narrated and transmitted to people 30,000 hadith. Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ju'fi narrated 70,000 hadith from our fifth Imam. And according to scholars, there were 460 students who were narrating from Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. So this is what I wanted for us to think about and to be inspired by. That just 50 years after Karbala, to us it seems like a long time. 50 years? You mean we're going to have to be suffering, we're going to be oppressed, we're going to have hardship for 50 years? 50 years is not a long time. It's less than one lifetime. Broaden your horizon and place your hope and trust in Allah. In reality, it wasn't even 50 years. The period of the imamate of our fifth Imam was 19 years, and according to some narrations, 20 years. Less than 20 years, Imam Muhammad Baqir, he spread so many ahadith that now the followers of Ahlul Bayt, they had access to tafsir, they had access to du'as, they had access to the guidance of Ahlul Bayt, and they were on a firm footing. So other schools of thought, they would come and they would say, what do the Imams of Ahlul Bayt say? They became students of Imam Baqir, and very famously they became students of his son Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So in conclusion, one hadith from our fifth Imam. If you want to have hope, don't worry who is going to be the next president. President serves 4 years or 8 years. Then the whole administration and Congress and everything can change. And even within one administration, sometimes Allah brings circumstances that nobody could expect. And a grave tragedy becomes a great blessing for the believers. If you are worried about the state of the resistance, if you are worried about the state of the affairs, put your trust in Allah. Nothing could be a greater tragedy than Karbala. Imagine looking across the plains of Karbala, strewn with the noble bodies of the grandchildren of Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Would anybody think that within the lifetime of an eyewitness of Karbala, hundreds of thousands of ahadith and narrators would come and would learn from Ahlul Bayt, and Imam Muhammad Baqir would become the most important teacher and guide, not just of the Shia, but of the Muslim Ummah in his time? But Allah brought that about. And if you and I follow the path of Imam Baqir, then we also will have that same blessing from Allah. The concluding hadith from our fifth Imam, he says, Al-Kamal Kullul Kamal. The perfection of a human character, all of perfection, is at-tafaqquhu fi ad-din. Number one, to have a deep learning of your religion, which is fiqh, but it is also correct belief. Know your religion. Don't just think of religion as an afterthought. You pick it up from here and there. Learn your religion and learn it from authentic sources, not from popular sources in person or online. Number two, was-sabru ala naibah. When you have tragedy, then be patient and be forbearing and trust in Allah. And number three, وَتَقْدِيرُ الْمَعِيشَةِ. Take charge of your material affairs and plan and be responsible in managing your wealth and the material affairs that Allah has given you. Three pieces of guidance as a lesson from our fifth Imam. Perfection is to learn our religion well, to be patient and steadfast in times of hardship, and to be responsible managers and stewards of the wealth and the resources that Allah has given us. I apologize for my slight cough and for the length of today's talk, but this was a reminder for us not to lose hope in times of difficulty. We are the followers of Ahlul Bayt. Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, he built the school of Ahlul Bayt on such solid foundations that even till today we are learning and we are inspired by his example. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to benefit from the teaching of Imam Muhammad Baqir on this day of his birth. May he make us among those people who are true to the path of Ahlul Bayt. The difficulties and the hardships that we see Muslims are suffering in Lebanon, in Syria, in Parachanar, Pakistan, and anywhere else in the world. May Allah turn this hardship into ease and give strength to the believers and those who are following the path of Allah and the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month answer our prayer for the hastening of the appearance of our Imam, and may we be among his true followers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all of us among ar-Rajabiyun, the people whose worship in the month of Rajab is accepted and who are true followers of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.